Hey everybody, welcome back to Author Eke. Today I have Dante Terese, and she's going to talk about her new book. And yeah, as you guys know, we'll talk about anything that pops into our head. So it's a smorgasbord of conversation. So Dante, take
Yeah.
it away.
Hello there. I'm really glad to be on your show. I know that you also write about different things in the military perspective. And the new book, shameless promotion here,
Oh
is
yeah,
called The Base.
we love that.
And the Base book one, it is going to be part of a series. And it is, I am told, military science fiction. And that's where we take the probable and imagine it further and make it possible.
Ah, so what gave you the inspiration?
Just a lot of things. I am the daughter of a research scientist,
Ah,
and nobody can really tell you how crazy that is because when there's a hot research topic, there are spies and thieves doing everything they can to steal the researched item.
of course.
So the base is about military scientists on a base, and they are trying to finish their book by the military's deadline. Not their book, I'm sorry, their invention by the
Uh-huh.
military's deadline. But there are spies and thieves. They're surrounded by them, people who are trying to steal their ideas because there's loads of people out there buying.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, it's interesting. The more research I did on like who is stealing ideas, it's not just, the usual suspects. Like everyone would say off the top of their head, they would say, oh, Russia, China.
Yep.
But the cartels actually have their own armies,
Well, I imagine they have their own military intelligence arm and their own espionage, and
satellites,
they're
all of it.
they've infected everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's an awful lot of people competing for those stolen ideas
Hmm.
and stolen items that our military is working really hard to protect and
Hmm.
perfect for the good of humankind.
Right. It's interesting that you talk about China and Russia and probably the predominantly, again, everybody thinks of those two. Israel. I mean, that when they bring it, like we will put out a jet and they'll put out a jet I mean, almost exactly like it. It's amazing. And, a lot of that has to go to when we allowed them in the World Trade Organization. You put a company over there, you got to be able to give once you open servers up to folks that they can transect that whole network unless it's really clamped down and be surprised what they could get just from a bits and bytes perspective, not just human intelligence.
Yeah, and it's also interesting. It was interesting to me. I did spend time with friends on military base, and which helped to inspire this book as well. But it's interesting to see, like, I mean, who really has their core values, and who can flip. And and so there's some really evil villains in the book.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And some people may envy them because, oh, they have all these material things and stuff like that. But I wouldn't want to live next door to them. I wouldn't trade places with them. There's a difference between good money and money you don't want.
Right.
And but the villains, they're very creative, very, very creative about finding ways to tap into our intelligence and to get what they want.
Well, yeah, I mean they look for somebody who can be manipulated. They look for somebody might if something gets out, their clearances will be toast. That means civilian life. They can't get a job in civilian life because of the clearance. And I think just recently, I think a Navy guy was caught selling secrets, for really a piddly amount of money when you think about it in the grand scheme of things. he's done. I mean, he's gonna, he'll go to Leavenworth.
Well, it's always amazing to me sometimes when people get caught, and not just in the military secret scenario, but in other scenarios like shoplifters and stuff. Everyone always says, you had a great mind. If you had taken that mind and you had used it and achieved something else, and used that mind to achieve your full potential, I mean, how
Yeah,
far could you have gone? You wouldn't be in a jail cell. You wouldn't be asking for a
yep,
public defender right now. You wouldn't be trying
yep,
to cover your tracks right now and having
yep.
some of your friends snitch on you right now. I mean, your whole life could have been on a completely different trajectory
hmm
if you had just made different decisions. And, it's something that I marvel at a lot. But that's the way things go.
We don't need any more Lex Luthers, right? I mean, so
Yeah,
Superman
that's
had
the
his. I
truth.
mean, yeah, it's amazing. And I just it it's and there don't even have to be, like you said, top secret stuff. Look at the pharmaceutical industry. I
Yes.
mean, just think of what in technology industry. You're not talking top secret anything. You're just talking about intellectual property theft. That is tremendous when you think about it. All the phishing and all these other ways to try to get into you as a person or your company.
Well, I think also I had a lot of fun writing this because when I was growing up, my father's a tremendously gifted scientist, and his IQ is off the scale. And I had the privilege of meeting some of his coworkers. Now,
Oh, nice.
there are people that say that genius and madness are pretty close.
Look at Einstein.
Yeah. And but you when you see some of these truly brilliant people, they can be a little quirky. So I had a lot of fun writing the
That's a good word.
characters.
Quirky is a good word you put out there.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun writing the
Mhm.
characters that each scientist had a different area of expertise, and they each had their quirks. And it was the strangest group that you would ever assemble together. But yet they were all in together. They really worked on it, put their 100%, their whole hearts into it. But
Mhm.
their different backgrounds and expertise and fields of knowledge were, pretty strange.
Yeah.
But
I
they
mean, but
but they made
that's
it
the
happen.
beauty of it.
Yeah. So I'm really enjoying how we're working on the sequel, and I had an extreme privilege yesterday. We want to have a real photograph of real military jeeps on the cover. And I've had the extreme privilege of seeing two jeeps that we are going to use, and one of them is World War II, and the other one's 1951.
When I went in the Army in 1976, and I drove a Jeep very similar, probably the one from 1951. I mean, they hadn't changed too much. But that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, if there's so many. I don't know where you're located, but there's so many by the forts, right?
Hmm.
Almost every fort has a museum, and that museum could be attributed to the division that's probably there, like Fort Riley, the First Infantry Division. It used to be the Armor Museum at Fort Knox, but moved that to Fort Benning with the Infantry Museum, I guess. But yeah, so there's all sorts of cool things that you can look at and stuff.
Yeah, yesterday was a lot of fun. I didn't realize that the smokestack on the old one was like right where an antenna would be.
You know why?
No,
Because they can go into water, and if the exhaust is underwater, the engine will die. They can ford like 3 feet of water.
that is really cool.
That's why.
That is really okay.
I'm a plethora of sometimes useless knowledge that comes in handy at parties. So,
I collect facts also.
so
Yeah,
let's see.
so I know
So,
what you mean.
so did you? So you set out. Your father was inspiration, I take it, for the book and the research around, because he had probably been approached many times. You know, folks try to get his stuff that he's doing or was doing. I'm sure over the years.
It's rampant, and even in my chosen profession before I started writing. I was a baker pastry chef. People try to steal your recipes all the time.
Yeah, I mean, look at Seinfeld with the soup recipes. I mean, it's
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just a whole lot of thieving going on. It's like, folks, get creative, get an
yeah,
imagination, make
exactly.
something.
Yeah,
Fun.
I mean, use your noodle. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
God gave it to you.
Seriously.
Yeah. Well, I love the bake, by the way.
Yes. I did see that.
I do. I'm getting a
Good.
new oven today because I cooked a peach cobbler, and I mean, I set a timer, everything, and the timer went off, it burnt. I go, man, did I put something in the wrong order for the sugar to burn on the bottom, right?
Hmm.
So I said, I'll make another one. But I mean, everything exactly correct, follow the recipe exactly correct, put it in the oven, and it burned. So I said, that's not right. So I put a thermometer in the oven, and it was at 550 degrees. It set at 350. So a thermostat, I was going, man, can't mess up a cobbler. How easy is that? So I like making bread. I started to have my sourdough starter from May of 2020, and I still use it.
I think whenever I would go to different job sites, the first thing I would do is I have a recipe for a sugar cookie. And when you scoop the dough out, I can get 24 to a full-size sheet pan. And that is the first thing I make in every oven, in every catering outfit, or every bakery that I've ever worked in, because I can look at it and I can tell the wind patterns in the oven. Like the heat is much higher in the front
Yeah.
because the front row is darker and
Yeah.
everyone in the back, is still light.
Yeah.
And so I learned that is like my go-to
Right.
because, it shows all the flaws
You
right
look at the
away.
idiosyncrasies of each one of the different ovens and figure that out. I just throw it in mine. And one thing I cannot master, and I can't decorate a cake. I mean, I'll make the frosting and I'll slap it on there. It looks like a 2-year-old put it on there. But when you get past there, it's pretty good. But because I think for me, it helps me pay attention to detail and instructions because I'm kind of out there sometimes. So it allows me to do that.
I decorated in supermarkets, and that's kind of hard because the person's right in front of you. They say they're going to have to leave right now. They pull
Yeah.
some cake out of the case and they want you to write on it and put, they tell you like 3 or 4 flowers and whatnot.
Mhm.
And I always try to get them to write down the spelling
Yes, that's
because,
important.
yes, because my first time doing one on the fly, I mean, there are so many variations of Caitlin right now, and so many other names like that right now, and
Yeah.
Lynn. And so, I mean, I give them a piece of paper, I tell them to write it down because when you try to take a letter off a white frosting,
Yeah.
you're talking about surgery.
Yeah. That'd be tough. But I mean, colored frosting,
And
colored
not leave
lettering on
a
a white
footprint
frosting.
and stuff, or the color starts to bleed in already and stuff.
Yeah.
So, it taught me a trick. Just hand them a piece of paper and, tell,
So
yeah.
getting back to your book, are there main characters in your book? A protagonist and all of that, or is it just how is it this kind of the
Well,
storyline?
it starts out that the young daughter of one of the scientists is narrating it from her point of view. And she's about 5 years old. And her best friends are the second scientists. There's 3 scientists that work together very, very closely.
Mhm.
And so her best friend is right across from their house. And her father's name is Mr. Clark, and his expertise is computer. And so the young daughter of Cullen, whose expertise is making things like synthetic cartilage replacements. And that is something that is very sought after. Because imagine not having to get the knee replacement. Imagine someone just gives you a shot of the cartilage and you're repaired. You're done. And so he does, he does synthetic versions of cartilage. And then with that, you also don't really have the issue of tissue rejection, because it's not a transplant or anything. And you don't really have the issues and complications that come in from someone, having to get a major surgery, like having that knee and then having to get physical therapy afterwards and stuff. So they're after the villains are really after Cullen. Really, really.
Okay.
Now that brings me to the third scientist. His expertise is insects. And he got drafted to go over to that base because of some of his designs for military equipment were based on insects. Now, it's not that big of a stretch of your imagination to look at something like a helicopter and say, you know what, that looks something like a dragonfly. And, maybe they took some of the features in a tank. Maybe they got that idea from some of these other insects out there. So the military is really looking for them to make a completely different type of drone. It's not going to be the normal type of drone, which is a flying drone.
Right.
The military wants them to make a drone that is capable on land, almost like an ATV, but it can also get submerged. And, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be destroyed by water. So these three scientists lend their expertise to that. They do have the insect specialists come up with a very unique design for that.
They probably have that. I mean, the military, DARPA, when you think about all this stuff that's going on from a military perspective and what they're doing. I mean, look, a lot of stuff that we use now came from NASA, and that stuff was long time ago secret.
Well,
That's interesting.
I found it very interesting that a lot of the things the scientists were researching, I would look up and I would find that there currently is a race to find synthetic cartilage.
I bet. I mean, that would be monumental.
That would be such a game changer.
Yeah.
And especially with the trend for robotic surgeries and stuff, like my friend, she just had a kidney removed and a robot did her surgery. But the thing is, that was a little scary to me. Like you trusted a robot.
That's confidence.
I mean, I remember in the early ages of the internet, they would tell us, there's kidney thieves waiting outside, and they're going to take your kidney. Remember those rumors that guys were found in a bathtub with ice?
To wake up and they're, they got to.
Yeah. But anyway, so a robot in theory could give you an injection in your knee of synthetic cartilage. There is a big race for a lot of the elements that are in that book, so it's not entirely far.
Well, the best fiction is truth, almost, or resembles truth in some shape or form. Because then it becomes fantasy or science fiction. And if somebody buys a book, they want to be able to, a thriller or suspense or espionage or whatever, they want like James Bond, what he was doing was believable.
Yeah.
Even back, Goldfinger, all that stuff. Yeah, I like that. So do you like doing research?
Yes.
Is that like in your blood?
I really loved that. I loved, all of that. I mean, I had to make it real. Probably the biggest reason is because my father wanted to read it, and I knew that he was going to be my toughest customer. I was actually afraid to have him read it.
Yeah.
Because he would, he would fact check it. He would look it over really with a fine-tooth comb.
That's his job.
Yeah, but when I did the research, especially on certain insects, like I can't say that these people are located on this base in this part of the country, and they are using this insect, but this insect, lives on berries, and there are no berries there. I had to,
that's right.
I had to get down to the most minute details about, everything in their lives. And, so, and including the insects' lives and their creations' lives and stuff. It was a lot of work, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed the research. When I wrote 1 of 4, I put like there's a full moon, and I went back and looked. Okay, on this date, it was a full moon because I want sometimes people go back and
Yeah.
they'll or what equipment did they use? When did they use it? All this information because you want it to be believable. So, but I do like doing that research. You find some interesting things as you're doing that research that actually, can kick off your creative juices there about, maybe something else you want to write about. But the researching is I love to do I learn a lot of stuff.
Well, you can't have one of your characters in your book like get into a car and then look up something on the GPS.
Yeah.
Like,
No, yeah.
no, that wasn't around then. You have
No, it
to
wasn't.
be, everything has to be factually accurate.
Yes. Yes. That's
And,
right.
the end of the book, they had to go to a base in Portugal. And I had been there. But I mean, for the time period and stuff, I had to also be correct with the currency. Because for a
Yes.
time, Portugal did join with the other nations, and
Uh-huh.
they were not using their own currency.
Yep. Yep. That's right.
And so, I had to really comb it, really, really comb it for flaws and
Yeah.
everything.
No, I agree. Well, that's what makes a book enjoyable to read, believable as you read, even though in the back of your mind, this has to be fiction, but it seems very truthful, or real. I should say real, not truthful, real. So I do like that. So, and you're writing another sequel.
Yes. Yes. The sequel's actually finished, and the copyright office just mailed me back the certificate. So now we're working on the book cover for it.
Awesome.
And it's interesting because the first book, the base book 1, you get to get a taste of the characters and or their level of expertise and the things that they encounter and how they combine their specific specialized skills together to create things. The sequel, you really get to flesh these guys out more. And the Bugman turns out to be sort of the guy who's practical joker.
Yeah, that makes sense. He's probably that's a rough job,
And then a new scientist is added into the mix, and then another new scientist and stuff. So, but they have very specific, specialized areas of expertise. And they're going to combine their skills, and then will they or will they not work out with the trinity that we have there? Cullen, the Bugman, and Mr. Clark. We'll see. We'll see.
So do you self-publish?
Yes, I am self-published. I wrote a book before that, and it was a book that was based on my life, and because that was kind of personal, I couldn't really see like having an editor, go through that.
Yeah.
So I just continued with it on this one, but this one is the base is so strange. I mean, I know people who really like it, but they say this is really creative. This is really
you got to think of that story that's out there, right? I mean, not a story that's out there, but you want to be unique.
It is. And that's what people say. They especially with the characters and stuff, they're like, this is really different.
Oh yeah.
So the base. So then doing the sequel to that, I had to up the ante.
Of course.
I had to give them different scenarios and people who've already stayed with me for the first book. That was what compelled me to do the sequels. That so many people got back to me and said, you can't let Bugman die. You just can't let these people just disappear. I mean, and most people don't like bugs. I mean, especially in their house. But I was...
No, not really. That's let me leave the door open to get as many of these 6- and 8-legged creatures as I can into my house here.
Yeah, but I was really surprised. The feedback that I was getting from the readers was just like, we want to see what they do next. And don't kill the bug man. He's nuts. We love him.
Uh-huh.
And so that's what compelled me to do the sequel. And I'm trying to inch it into film because I think it is strange enough. And we'll
So are you
see.
going to write the screenplay? That's because that's a totally
That is a
totally
totally
different type
different.
of writing.
That really is. Or find someone in that. I have a few actors that really like,
Okay.
and so we'll
Never
see what
know.
happens.
You never know. I was approached the other day. Went to the Chamber of Commerce. I live in Allen, Texas, and
Mhm.
I hear a presentation. I talked about the book, and the guy after that, he owns a theatrical company here in town. He goes, "You ever thought about this being a one-man play?" And I executive produced a movie for my nephew. Basically, I paid for it. So I have an IMDb page, right? I have a rating and a star rating and whatever on that. And I said, well, if you want to do it, I'll sponsor it. I mean, no, I'd love to. It'd be great. So, but who knows? But yeah, I've looked at maybe trying to write a screenplay, but I wouldn't know what not to put in it, right? You don't want to put the whole book. You want to put those things that keep the viewer interested, not the reader, but the viewer.
Yeah, it's a very different style of writing. And that field has changed so much. I mean, entire films are being shot on an iPhone now.
I know. It's crazy. And AI. That's which is scary. Well, now when you put a book up on Amazon, when you publish it on Amazon, you gotta say yes, it has AI or not.
Generated content, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when I copyrighted this book, the copyright office even asks you, I mean,
Uh-huh.
is there any AI generated content in your book? And I'm like, I hope that doesn't become a thing, but my adopted sister is a teacher, and she says they're estimating at this point that 1 in every 3 papers is
Oh
written.
yeah.
Yeah.
What do you lose there is creativity. People are going to be robotic or always dependent on something else to answer their question.
Yeah, it's like if the satellite isn't working, what are you kids going to do?
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. Crazy,
Yes,
crazy.
indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So, did you ever write a cookbook or a baking book?
Not commercially, no.
Okay.
But I would have what I called my workbooks at my
Uh-huh.
job, and I would just have go-to things like for the most part I worked in catering.
Okay.
And so, you would have different scenarios thrown at you. It's very interesting now that your typical wedding, like if you have a wedding with like 200 people in it, there's 5 different diets. So I would have to have
Yeah,
a
I can
vegan
see that.
version, a gluten-free version.
Kosher.
So that's really become a very complicated.
Well, I'm glad I don't know 200 people. Mine would be very simple. It'd be like bologna
Yeah.
sandwiches and cupcakes. I
Keep
cut
life
through all the
simple. I'm
minutia.
right with you.
Cut through all the
Yeah.
minutia. You go to
Yep.
the bakery later, get whatever you want. So, where can folks get a hold of you? Where can they buy your book?
Okay, my book is available on Amazon.com.
Okay, let's see the cover again.
And
Shameless plug. It's not
if you
shameless.
just
It is not shameless on Author Eke. It's required to plug your book.
if you type in the words the base and then type in Dante, you'll get it.
Awesome.
And you'll get my author page also.
Okay.
And I do have a website. It's danteterese.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what I'm doing. I want to do more, and I love the way that people are reaching out and stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's very interesting to see what people have to say.
And
It's not.
normally, from what I've read, scientists are not normally the main character of a story. They're part of the story that drives the storyline by things that they do.
They are very important characters in the book, but the villains are just as important. And the villains, I think everyone has known something similar to the type of villains that are in there. And it really, there's a story underneath the story. You
Uh-huh.
have the story of the military scientists. They're working really hard to create something. And then you have people that are trying to steal
Right.
and, but not instead of going out and developing their skills and, really having
They just
those
steal it.
talents and honing those talents. They're
They
just
just
trying to steal
steal it.
something. But the story under the story is really the good and evil. Who would you rather live next door to? I mean, of course, like the villain Venus, who is a big character in the sequel. Venus has the best house in the best area, and she wants for nothing.
Right.
I mean, she has it all, and then she has more, and more, and more.
Excellent. 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 Well, I would say, folks, check out the book. Seems pretty interesting. The storyline and the way that she used the characters to drive something that happening every day. So, make sure you, lock your accounts down, even from
Yep.
a writer perspective. So that's good. So, Dante, I appreciate, having you on Author Eke. Had a great time. Show your book again. We got to burn that in their mind there. Excellent. Excellent,
Thank-
folks. It's The Base. Come on. That's a simple name. The Base.
Yep.
Go check it out.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you and the best of luck. And we'll get you back
Thank
on
you.
when you do your second book.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you
Bye-bye.
much. Be well.